Thanks. Hi. I think we're going to start with a very brief video, 90 seconds, before Jeff quizzes me. And I want to get the video. 90 seconds.
To me. You guys are always here for me. I'd like to thank you so much. I love you guys. I
love you too. So I didn't actually set the stage that we can sit. Last year when we took over Rocky Mountain Ruby, I added in an idea that I took from some friends up who ran Madison Ruby, which was to highlight kind of two organizations, people in the community doing interesting work, kind of in the tech, maybe outside our little bubble. And so I became familiar through some friends with Defy, and thought it was really neat. Right, so you're not going to talk about containers and Kubernetes. We're done with that part. Now we're talking about Prism.
I'm not smart enough for that stuff.
Yeah. So can you give us the background? Okay, people are successful in this program and go, but what is the program? What's the problem here? Why is there something to be addressed?
The problem here is that many of our men and women who are behind bars have, as the video said, have rarely had a first chance at all of the opportunities that you and I have just by virtue of being here. I can say that that's probably true for most of us. So, and their opportunities when they're released from prison are pretty grim. There's a lot of discrimination when it comes to employment, housing, at just about every point along the way when they get out, they really struggle. And so our program is to help make them more successful on the outside.
I think a lot of people don't know if you haven't worked in these kinds of communities before or been involved. We talk about prison as rehabilitation, but really the punishment continues even after you exit, right? That you don't have the right to vote in most places, that it is difficult to get an apartment because many places ask and will explicitly deny, and it's not like a federally protected class or whatever. It's not discrimination according to the law to deny jobs, to deny housing to people because of a criminal record. Why then this push for entrepreneurship, and how does that fit into the puzzle?
Yeah, so there are a few reasons that we focus on entrepreneurship. One was alluded to, at a minimum alluded to here, but just to make that point clear, when our founder actually started visiting prisons for the first time before launching Defy, she spoke with a number of men at the time. She was visiting men's prisons who were entrepreneurs. In fact, many of them had been quite successful entrepreneurs, just in illegal businesses. And many of those illegal businesses are what wound them up in prison. So one of the reasons that we focus on entrepreneurship, and there are a couple that I'll point out, but one of them is simply that we know these guys have natural talents. They're natural-born hustlers, we like to say, and our goal is to really help redirect them to legal enterprises. Another reason entrepreneurship is great is it's a fantastic tool for teaching really important life skills like problem solving and creative thinking and self-motivation, and these skills that will help all of us whether we own our own businesses or not. So it's a great tool for teaching life skills. I should point out that even though we're known for our entrepreneurship training, 2/3 of our curriculum is actually character development, personal growth, because we want these guys and women to be successful on the outside, whether they start their own business or not. Last but not least, can I say one more, which is really important? Entrepreneurship is a magnet. It acts as a magnet. It's sexy, it's aspirational, it's kind of the shiny object. And so our program participants are drawn to the idea of entrepreneurship, just like our volunteers are drawn to the idea of entrepreneurship. And so it's this common interest that brings together two seemingly very different groups of people, but it's really just the starting point for their journey together. They ultimately, as they work together through Defy, learn that they have far more commonalities than they have things that divide them, and wind up really discovering this common sense, this shared humanity. And it all begins just with the idea of entrepreneurship.
It's interesting. I think in some ways it feels like a stretch to connect like tech entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurship that got folks in prison in the first place, or what's possible afterwards. But it's really, the example I was thinking of was Uber, right, which for all their flaws, like not my favorite company at all, but their model was like willingly break the law and try and develop a customer base and enough revenue that we could then afford the like legal proceedings after that, right? And they were radically successful in it. That's not so different an approach of like what the Defy entrepreneurs have tried in the past, right? Unfortunately. Like, can you tell us about success stories? Like what, I guess first question for me is like, how do you define success when you're dealing with like a really essentially high risk population, right? High recidivism rates and so forth in the US. What does the organization set out as like, yeah, if one person is better off, then we've done what we set out to do, or is it 100% of people, or like how do you define success, and then what do some of those successes look like?
I left finance 6 months ago, so I don't like to talk about those numbers, and I'm just kidding. We like numbers a lot, and we like return on investment that we're funded, and we'll talk more about this, 95% funded by private donations, and we want to make sure that our very generous contributors know that there is a return on this investment. We want our guys to be successful, and women to be successful out of prison, whether that means they start their own business or not, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So the fact that we've helped launch 170 businesses, yay, that's great. We're we are more proud of the fact that we have less than a 5% recidivism rate compared to the national average of about 70%, depending on the time frame that you're talking about. So we're pretty pleased that a very, very, very small number of our graduates have wound up back in prison. Our goal is to keep them out and keep them successful. Secondly, we have a 95% employment rate, and I'll talk about entrepreneurship and employment, and I'll get to that in 1 second, but we have a 95% employment rate as well, which we are equally proud of. So just, can I tell you about a couple of the businesses? Here are just a handful of the 70, just to highlight a couple of my favorites, two. One is Access Self-Defense, which is a Bay Area EIT, and it's one of my favorites only because I've benefited from his services. It's a graduate of our program who teaches self-defense training to both corporate and individual clients. I had him come over and teach a group of my friends, and it was awesome. So I love Access Self-Defense, and probably our most successful launch, and I'm going to encourage you all to go to his website, is ConBody in the upper left-hand corner here, conbody.com. Cosmarte is one of our early New York City graduates, and he, while he was in prison, developed a prison-style workout, which, right, it's all your own body weight kind of deal, and Cos now has himself a gym in Saks Fifth Avenue's flagship store in Manhattan, as well as his own brick-and-mortar gym in Lower Manhattan. And the other reason you should go to his website, he has 15,000 plus online subscribers. So you can do his prison-style workout in the comfort of your own home. And also, if you go to his website, you can read about his personal story, which is pretty amazing. So a diversity of businesses, mostly service businesses, because unlike we won't have the next Uber or Facebook, at least near term, because we want our businesses to start to be able to start with $25,000 in initial funding, and to be cash flow positive in the first.
Wait a minute.
Wait, is that possible?
That's not how you do business anymore. You're supposed to spend a lot and make
very
doesn't matter.
little. We want cash flow. We want. We want cash flow positive because we want financial stability as soon as possible. And I said I'd go back to employment. So we're really proud of all of the businesses that our graduates have launched. But when our entrepreneurs in training, is what we call our program participants, when our entrepreneurs in training graduate not only from our program, but when they get out of prison, our first priority for them is getting them work. Because financial stability is the number one indicator. Employment is the number one indicator of whether someone recidivates or not. So our focus is business on hold, even Conbody. Cosmarte worked for years before he was able to quit and actually do Conbody full time. So our focus is on getting people in work and getting them financially stable, able to contribute to their family, and they can do this startup stuff on the side. So.
Why do you think, so locally, like Bradfeld is on part of the, is it like the Colorado board organizing, part of the Colorado?
Bradfeld is on the national board.
On the national board, fancy.
Yes.
And I have a couple other friends who are involved in California.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think tech people are attracted to the organization and like what you're doing?
I think it's the spirit of, well, it helps that our founder grew up in the VC tech world, so we have some pretty good roots there, so that's an honest reason. But I think the entrepreneurship piece also draws the tech world just like it draws so many of our other entrepreneur volunteers and other volunteers. I just think that there's something there that brings us all together.
If I'm a software developer, obviously, like, I could contribute money. Are there, like, other ways for me to get, boom.
I was hoping you'd ask that question.
Yeah, like, how, so I can be like, cool, and then what?
Yeah, totally. So we are, maybe in your first question I should have said, we're a national organization, expanding state by state, and we're launching in Colorado right now. There's the connection between
Here's some pens clicking.
All
That's
of us, please. So because they're too important, and I'm sorry they're small, I had some problems with my graphic design there, but there are 3 ways you can help, and I'll tick through them quickly, picking up where we just left off. You can hire our graduates. You may or may not be in a position to hire, but your companies are probably, and you may have friends who are in a position to hire. So we are launching in Colorado now. It won't be long before we have entrepreneurs in training leaving prison looking for work. They're good guys. Hire, volunteer. You don't have to be an entrepreneur yourself you don't have to own a business to be an effective volunteer. If you have ever put together your own resume or been a customer of a service business, I'm guessing that's true everyone here, you can be really of great value to our EITs, and we will start soon volunteer opportunities. Initially we'll be in prison in Colorado. Last but not least, we are a nonprofit and we're not too proud to beg. Money we appreciate a lot, and just to give you a sense, $42 a month for 12 months covers the cost of one EIT, Entrepreneur in Training, to go through our program. That's a great amount, but we love any amounts, greater or lesser, and so it's a little small. Again, I'm sorry, I should have put it over. There's our website, defyventures.org/take-action. That's where volunteer opportunities will be. It's also where there's a page online. You can make a donation. And there's my name and email. If you have any questions about anything I've said or any leads for jobs or want to talk about anything else, my email address is right there.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie.
Oh, hold on.
I like it.
Both for
fancy.
Jeff and Dave.
Thank you.
T-shirts.
Thank you.
Hustle harder.